Hospital nursery rooms don't hum the way most people think they do. They tick. They click. They hiss with oxygen feeds and soft mechanical exhalations. Monitors pulse, but quietly. Lights buzz, but faintly. And late at night, there is always a rhythm, even in the newborn wing. That's why it stood out. The beeping. Too precise. Too sharp. Not one of the hospital's sounds. Tuesday night, 2:11 a.m. Nurse Deidre Cole was halfway through rounds. She had walked these halls more than any other RN on staff. She didn't need to check room numbers. She knew which bassinets had which babies. She knew which ones kicked off their blankets, which ones whimpered in their sleep. She also knew when something didn't fit. The noise was faint. A three-tone pulse, like an old dial-up modem or a distant security alarm. It came from one of the corner cribs, baby Elias Sutter. 2 days old. No health complications. Born to a surrogate, papers all in order. He had a full head of black hair and a habit of curling his fingers. But now he was absolutely still. The blanket was bunched too high. Not how she left it. Deidre leaned down, gently, cautiously. The beeping was definitely coming from underneath the blanket. She pulled it back and screamed. Not from fear. From shock. There was a device. No bigger than a flip phone, but older looking. Wedged under the baby's onesie. Taped in place. A tiny red light blinked. The beeping stopped the moment her fingers touched it. She hit the emergency call button. The room was flooded with white-blue light in seconds. Within minutes, Elias was taken to observation. Nurses swarmed the wing. Security posted at every entry. The sound, the three-tone beeping, was gone. But in Deidre's ears, it lingered. When the pediatric supervisor asked her what happened, Deidre didn't know how to explain. She wasn't even sure she believed what she'd seen. Because the device looked wrong. It wasn't made of smooth plastic like modern monitors or hospital wearables. Its edges were grainy, slightly cracked. The adhesive looked dried out, brittle. The metal backplate had a corroded sheen, as if it had been buried somewhere. She told them everything. She didn't leave anything out. But something shifted in the room when she mentioned the beeping. It wasn't just the sound. It was how the baby didn't move. How the air in the room felt off. Too still. Like a moment holding its breath. The pediatrician, Dr. Kellerman, reviewed Elias for hours. No bruising. No scratches. No indication the device had affected his vitals. No evidence of harm at all. But they still couldn't explain how it got there. The security footage showed Deidre walking in at 2:11 a.m. But the crib, in the minutes before she entered, remained still. No hands. No shadows. No movement. The device just appeared. Deidre didn't sleep that night. She drove home, sat in her car, and stared out the windshield until the sky turned gray. The next day, hospital security handed the device off to administrative risk management. Risk management sent it to law enforcement. Law enforcement flagged it as unknown tech. And then the calls started. Federal agents. A regional forensics team. Even someone from Homeland Security. But no one could identify it. The serial number, if it even was a serial number, was a nonsensical string of letters and slashes. R.XH3_W0RRBL.N0.D3. No signal. No wireless output. No traceable hardware signature. The device stopped blinking on the second day. It didn't die. It just went dormant. They tried disassembling it. Tools snapped. A laser cutter cracked trying to breach the outer shell. It was made from something they couldn't place. Not plastic. Not metal. Something in between. And then the envelope arrived. No postage. No return address. Just slid under the hospital's main administrative door. Inside, one photo. A black and white image, slightly curled at the corners. For nurses standing around an empty crib. Their uniforms were from the 1970s, maybe earlier. Faded dresses, pointed caps, and full aprons. They all smiled. But something was wrong with their eyes. The pupils had been cut out. Not digitally. Not scratched. Surgically removed. Tiny, scalpel-sharp holes. On the back, scrawled in black ink. It hears everything. No signature. No explanation. Hospital security assumed it was a hoax. But Deidre didn't. She had felt it. In that room. She remembered the chill. How the lights dimmed for half a second before she heard the beeping. Most of the hospital's records only went back to the mid-90s. The building had been partially destroyed in a fire in 1996, then rebuilt. The nursery wing was the first to be modernized. Everything pre-1996 had either burned or been boxed and stored off-site. But there were a few long-term staff members still around. One of them was Mr. Giles. He was 83, mostly retired, but still showed up every other Friday to wax the lower floors. He'd worked at the hospital since he was 22. Deidre found him near the loading dock, refilling a mop bucket. She asked him if he knew anything about old nursery equipment, or if he remembered a time when nurses wore the kind of uniforms in the photo. At first, he just looked at the picture, and then, after a long pause, he whispered. They called it the Sutter sound. Deidre froze. Sutter. The baby's last name. What do you mean? She asked. He shook his head. I barely remember it. Was a long time ago. Maybe 77? 78? There was this baby. They said he disappeared. No one ever found him. The room he was in, they sealed it off. For a while, anyway. There was talk. What kind of talk? Giles looked around, as if someone might be listening. They said the crib kept beeping, even after the baby was gone. The hospital's official record listed the mother of baby Elias Sutter as a surrogate, a woman named Mara Sutter. But the deeper the administrators looked, the stranger it got. No contact number. No permanent address. No insurance profile, medical history, or social security number. She had signed everything legally, witnessed, notarized. But the ID on file, a Michigan driver's license, came back flagged, expired in 1983. A social worker assigned to Elias's case tried to track her down. The address she gave didn't exist. Not anymore. The building had been torn down in 2009. And yet, every hospital record showed she had been there. Intake, delivery, postnatal observation. Her signature matched across a dozen forms. Even the staff remembered her. She was quiet, pale, polite, said one nurse. Didn't say much, but she always called him my Elias. Not the baby. Not your son. Just my Elias. When they pulled her intake photo, grainy, taken with a hallway cam, it was hard to make out her features. Something about her face looked soft-edged, slightly out of focus, like a photo taken mid-motion. She wore no jewelry, no phone, no emergency contact listed. She came alone, left alone, and no one remembered seeing her walk out. Deidre didn't want to get involved any further, but the dreams started. Always the same. She's in the nursery, alone. The lights flicker. The beeping starts. 3 tones. High, high, low. She walks to the crib, but there's no baby inside. Only the photo. Each night, she wakes at 2:11 a.m. She began digging. Not through official records, but through what hadn't been erased. Online forums, forgotten message boards, unindexed PDFs, and eventually, a cached version of a personal blog from the early 2000s, written by a retired nurse. The last post read, "There was never just one. I think we only noticed when they started returning." Deidre kept going. A local obituary from 1978, Infant disappearance remains unsolved. Parents Samuel and Corinne Sutter request privacy. Memorial service held at St. Paul's. Then a news clipping from 1992. Fire destroys wing of St. Luke's Regional. Arson suspected. Records dating back 50 years lost. And one peculiar database hit on the name Mara Sutter. A death notice. Dated 1979. The cause, postpartum hemorrhage. The child, never found. The photo wouldn't leave her alone. Deidre took it to an imaging specialist at a nearby university. Someone she trusted. The analyst scanned the print at ultra-high resolution and isolated the portion with the shadowy figure in the background. After several passes and enhancements, they rendered a clearer image. It wasn't just a woman behind the glass. It was a hospital room, and the woman's hands were pressed flat against the surface, her palms slightly curved as though she were trying to push through. And her face. It matched the intake photo of Mara Sutter. The analyst leaned back from the monitor. "This isn't digital trickery," he said. "This was part of the original print. Whatever this is, it was in the shot. Decades ago." He adjusted a filter. On the far left, nearly obscured in the depth of field blur, was a second figure. A child. Standing perfectly still. It should have been over then. But something returned. Something waited. Cut to silence. A photo slowly fades in, the glass nursery, the blurred child in the corner. A red light faintly pulses. After seeing the photo, Deidre couldn't sleep. The woman in the image, Mara, was the same one from the intake. But something about the eyes was wrong. Too vacant. Too distant. Like someone else was inside her face, wearing it too loosely. The child in the photo was the final crack. She hadn't noticed him before. But now she couldn't unsee him. A boy standing near the edge of the frame. Face half-turned. Barefoot. Watching. She brought the photo to the hospital board. Showed them the side-by-side comparison of the woman in the intake and the one behind the glass. One of the directors muttered, "That looks like St. Paul's." St. Paul's. It was a wing. A long-shuttered pediatric section closed after a fire in 1981. No working cameras. No active nursery there. Yet that's where the photo had been taken. When Deidre asked about Mara's medical chart, they said it was gone. The old St. Paul's wing was behind double-sealed fire doors. But late one night, Deidre's keycard, which should never have worked, granted her access. She walked the hall slowly, each step echoing. The walls were faded yellow, peeling in places. She passed old bassinets lined up like forgotten toys. And then she saw it. A glass wall. Beyond it, 6 identical cribs. Each one empty, except the middle. A photo lay inside. The same one. Only now, the boy in the corner was closer. His face more defined. And next to the photo was something wrapped in white cloth. A bundle. Deidre stepped forward. She wasn't sure why. She reached for the door. It slid open on its own. When she picked up the cloth, it was warm. It beeped once. And stopped. She found Mara Sutter again, not in the present, but in records. Not as a mother, but as a child. Disappeared from Flint, Michigan. December 11, 1978. Age, 2 months. Her case was one of hundreds marked, "No recovery." No one had ever reported her again. Until this. A nurse found paperwork inconsistencies that matched other cases. Same intake structure. Same faint beeping heard near infants' beds. Same unexplained file corruptions. A pattern. One entry noted, beeping corresponds to internal anomaly. Not physical, acoustic origin unknown. Object found with child disintegrated under test. Paper artifacts remain. Deidre searched deeper. She found a name repeated in 3 disappearances over 4 decades. Mara Sutter. But not always as the mother. Sometimes as the child. sometimes as the nurse. Once, as the missing person who returned too late. The next time she visited the St. Paul's wing, the glass was broken. Cracks spidered out from the center. The cribs were gone, but the red light still blinked. Deidre was found unconscious an hour later by a janitor. She had no memory of entering the wing. Her hospital access was revoked. She was referred to counseling. The photos she had printed were gone. All except one, the boy's face now clear. And he looked familiar. What if it wasn't a ghost? What if it was memory, echoing backwards? Something trying to return the way it was taken. The beeping. The glass. The child left watching. Something not born here, but recovered. What if the children taken weren't lost? What if they were stored? What if what returned wasn't them? Deidre moved away. She left behind her badge, her apartment, her phone. The only thing she mailed, anonymously, was a burned disc. On it, scans of the Mara photos, the redacted records, and a voice recording. In it, she says, "They're not ghosts. They're recordings. The beeping, it's how memory rewinds. They don't come back the same. Some stay stuck. Some try to wear us. If you see the child, don't lift the blanket. Just leave it be." Then silence. And one last sound, beep. Some say the past stays buried, but sometimes it waits. In old hospital wings. In photos that change when no one's looking. In cries heard behind nursery glass that shouldn't exist. Sometimes, what we think is a ghost, is a copy. A version. Sometimes, the missing don't come back. But something does. This story was recovered from the Lantern Room archives. Some stories whisper. Some scream. And some wait. If you're still with us, we'll be back for the next one.